Joining me today is Jeff Selingo and Liz Dietz. Jeff is a best-selling author and award-winning columnist who helps parents and higher education leaders imagine the college and university of the future and how to succeed in a fast-changing economy. He is the author of College Unbound, The Future of Higher Education and What It Means for Students, a New York Times best-selling education book in 2013, and MOOC U, Who is Getting the Most Out of Online Education and Why? His third book, There's Life After College, Navigating Your Time in School So You Are Prepared for the Jobs of Tomorrow, is scheduled for release in April of 2016 from HarperCollins. Liz Dietz is the Vice President at Workday and is responsible for strategy, design, and product management of Workday Student. Liz has more than 25 years of experience in designing, building, marketing, and supporting innovative software solutions in the education market. Prior to joining Workday in 2013, Liz served as Vice President for Higher Education at Cedar Crestone, establishing its higher education Workday practice. Prior to Cedar Crestone, Liz was General Manager of www.eduoneworld.org, and before that served as President and CEO for Zap Corporation, where she stewarded the development of Zap's secondary and post-secondary transcript exchange network and led the acquisition of Bridges Transitions. Liz has also worked for the Campus Solutions product division at PeopleSoft. Welcome, everyone, and I am going to turn this over to Jeff. I hope everyone enjoys today's webinar.
Thank you, Peggy, and it's great to be here today with Liz, and I want to kind of set the context for our conversation a bit today by giving you a preview of what I've been working on for the last year and a half. As Peggy mentioned, my next book, There is Life After College, will be coming out on April 12th. And I've spent the past year and a half talking to 20-somethings, to faculty members, to teachers, to students, and looking at why today's young adults and college graduates struggle to launch into careers, and what are the experiences that today's best students are having that help them navigate the time after college. As you know, about nearly 50% of today's college graduates are underemployed in jobs that don't require a bachelor's degree after college. Unemployment for recent college graduates has been coming down, but it's still higher than some historical levels. And I've really spent the last year and a half talking to employers and talking to students about the skill sets that are going to be needed to succeed in this fast-changing economy, and we're going to be talking a lot about them today. But first, a little bit of historical context. So you probably have seen the words on this slide over and over again. If you look at any survey of what employers want in today's college graduates, you hear it over and over again, whether it's a survey by Gallup or AAC&U, or other entities about what employers are looking for. And these, of course, are the soft skills that we hear over and over again, although we probably should call them the hard skills because they're very hard to teach in college, and they're not well measured by the traditional transcript, nor measured by the traditional college degree. And what is happening on many campuses today is that there's somewhat of a division between what students need to learn for their first job and what they need to learn for their fifth job. And so we see on many campuses a debate between education of the whole student for the future of their lives, but also education and more practical education for the day-to-day work they're going to be doing on campuses. And part of the reason is that we're expecting a lot out of the bachelor's degree today. When you think about it, 30 or 40 years ago, when fewer people needed a college degree to succeed in the workforce, the idea used to be that you would go to college, you would get a broad education, and then you would graduate and either get a job that would train you, or you would go to graduate or professional school where you'd be trained in a specific discipline or subject. We now expect both that training aspect of college and kind of the broad educational development of students at the age of 18 to happen at the same time. And this is why we have this tension on many campuses between the practical arts and the liberal arts. And the fact of the matter is that the bachelor's degree the expectations of the bachelor's degree are too much today, whether it's by faculty, by presidents, by students, or parents, because it was really designed for a different era. And that was an era when the transition from college and education to the workforce was simple and linear, and most people followed similar pathways. So they would go to high school, they would go to college, and of course fewer people went to college. In previous generations, they would graduate from college, they would get a job, usually a full-time job immediately after college at one employer that would train them, and they likely would stay there for their entire careers, 30 plus years, and then they would move into transition into retirement. And as a result, the model of education that serves this traditional model of how we launched into the workforce has been with us largely, to believe it or not, since colonial days. And in fact, back in 1652, Harvard University, which had been experimenting with a 3-year degree, decided to switch to a 4-year plan. And of course, everybody followed them, right? Because everybody wants to be like Harvard. And so since the colonial days, essentially, and since the founding of the country, we have had this idea that a college degree is a 4-year degree. But even as early as the 1800s, the president of Brown University at the time, Francis Wayland, was really concerned that this idea of a broad education wasn't going to serve institutions of higher education very well. And in fact, he worried about what he called institutional irrelevance if colleges and universities didn't focus enough on practical, hands-on learning. And part of the problem, of course, in the centuries and the decades since then is that the curriculum of higher education has changed. And in fact, Clark Kerr, the famous president of the University of California system, said in 1977 that, the curriculum basically is what is considered useful or appropriate or relevant of educated people at a certain point in their lives. And so the curriculum of higher education changed, but the actual structure of it, the foundation of higher education that dates back to the earliest days of this country, did not change at all. So, we still have the 4-year degree, we still have freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, we still think of 120 credits to the bachelor's degree. We still have all of the aspects of education from previous centuries that is now trying to serve a very different audience for higher education. At the same time, it's trying to serve a very different workforce, when the workforce is much more flexible and changing in different ways. And in fact, there's a new model. I showed you that traditional model, education to employment to retirement earlier. There's this new model that was actually developed by Tony Carnevale, who's an economist at Georgetown University. And looking through decades of Bureau of Labor Statistics, what he was seeing was that the transition from education to the workforce was changing, and actually has been changing since the early 1980s. And he found that students graduate from college, they move into what he called a period of learning and earning. So their learning is never done. They're occupation shopping. They're moving between jobs and even occupations. And then finally, where he found at the age of 30, they finally reach financial stability and they finally reach financial independence. So even today's college graduates don't reach financial independence until the age of 30, and back in 1982, it was age 26. That's when they finally settle down. They figure out what their occupation is going to be. They still move through jobs, but most important, their education is not done. So this idea that lifelong education, which for so long has been part of the rhetoric of education, is now a reality. And he found that students are still looking for educational opportunities throughout their life. They're always going to be students. And they're largely now finding it outside of traditional higher education, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then eventually they move to this transition to retirement, and then finally full retirement. But as I said earlier, the model that we have of higher education is not working for this economy. It is a 20th century educational model that is out of sync with a 21st century economy that is moving much more quickly. So in the book, I talk a lot about what are the skill sets, what are the skills the economy needs and demands, and what do employers want. And I spent a lot of time with employers as famous as Google and Facebook, and as large as Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which hires more college graduates every year than any other company in the U.S., and also small companies as well, small businesses throughout the country. And I kept asking the same question. What are you not getting in today's college graduates that you want? How important is the bachelor's degree or the associate's degree in hiring? How important of a signal is it that students are ready? And then finally, how do you hire? And how is that changing for tomorrow's college graduates? And I heard a couple of themes over and over again that I briefly want to talk about. And again, they kept talking about the soft skills. They kept talking about the cadence of learning today in higher education, right? So a job is very explorative, right? And so is learning. But at the same time, most colleges and universities follow a very set schedule that students get very used to that cadence, right? They come in September, they take 5 classes on a set schedule every day. They end in December. They take a couple of months off. They have nice breaks in between. They come back for the spring semester, and they repeat that 4 times over before they graduate. And the fact of the matter is that no job works like that, right? A job is much more of a mashup of activities, and students have to self-direct their learning throughout their lifetime. So in college and even in high school and secondary schools, somebody is kind of telling them at any one moment what they need to learn. But increasingly, education in the future is going to be lifelong. You're going to have to learn, unlearn, and relearn throughout your lifetime. We're living longer, we're going to be working longer, and we need to have a platform for learning so that education is not just this box you enter at the age of 18 and you come out with a degree 4 years later, but it's much more of a platform for lifelong learning. So what might something like that look like? Well, Stanford University actually designed this idea a couple of years ago as part of their D School. They rethought education at Stanford in the year 2025 as a design exercise, and they came up with this idea of the open loop university. And the idea would be that when you're accepted to Stanford University at the age of 18, you would get accepted and be offered education not just for 4 years, but for 6 years. And here's the important point. 6 years that you could use any time throughout your lifetime. The idea is you would loop in, you might stay for a traditional 4-year education, but you could also loop out after 2 years and go work for a Silicon Valley startup and then come back a couple of years later. So the idea is that you're never truly done with your undergraduate education, and most important, that you have access to your undergraduate alma mater. In some ways, it's not even your alma mater because you haven't officially graduated, but you have access to a place like Stanford throughout your lifetime as you're moving through various occupations, various jobs, and you need training throughout your lifetime. The second thing I heard was that students today are not taking enough risk. They're used to working on one project in college for a semester. They don't get a lot of feedback to that project, and usually sometimes they get the wrong feedback. But life, again, and the world of work today is a much more iterative process, right? There's a much more small wins and small losses, in some cases big losses. And students are not necessarily learning this in college. They're following a syllabus that tells them what they have to do, exactly when they have to do it. They work on projects sometimes in isolation over the course of a semester, perhaps even a paper that they write, and then they hand in that paper at the end of the semester. Somebody marks it up and they give it back to them, and then they move on to another class. Well, again, most jobs are not working like that, and students need to be given more opportunity to take risks and learn the meaning of grit. And in fact, the head of recruitment for Enterprise Rent-A-Car told me that too many students in this generation in particular have been syllabus through their life. They've basically been told what to do and when to do it. And one of the things that they're having difficulty finding are students who could manage multiple tasks at the same time, and most important, are problem solvers, that they figure out how to solve problems on their own. The third piece I heard over and over again is that no matter which job you have, it's a tech job, right? We have focused so much on STEM majors in recent years, but the fact of the matter is that no matter what field you're in, every job is a tech job. You know, we talk a lot about this generation being digital natives, but the fact of the matter is that many of them have a passive relationship with technology, right? They're always on their phones, texting their friends, using Snapchat or whatever it might be, but they don't necessarily know how the technology behind what they're using works. And what you're finding, whether it's in journalism or marketing or almost any job today, is students have to understand technology. So take marketing. I sat in on on a recruitment session for a large company at a major university that I talk about in the book. And it was all around marketing. And 20, 30 years ago, basically any major could have these jobs, but increasingly these jobs are very focused on data analytics and understanding the data around customer behavior. And they wanted students who not necessarily were math majors, but they wanted students who understood the technology behind decision making. And if they didn't understand that, what they were afraid of was that they were going to get left behind, that those students were going to get left behind. And I think this is a great quote from Brian Fitzgerald, who heads up the Business Higher Education Forum, where he says that every job today and every company today has been transformed into a technology company, no matter what they do. The fourth thing I heard over and over again was this inability of students today to navigate ambiguity. You know, jobs are different every day, but for the most part, students are only doing the things in college that they're asked to do. Again, as I said earlier, they're following that syllabus, and they're not necessarily gaining the skills, these soft skills that are necessary to excel at the job today. And what are those experiences in college, and mostly they happen outside of the classroom, what are those experiences outside of the classroom that enable them to navigate ambiguity, whether that is their participation in clubs and activities or athletics or internships? And part of the problem is that most colleges are not measuring the learning that happens in those experiences. So we tend to talk about the cost of higher education, but most parents think they're paying for that classroom activity when most of the experiences that students are getting that are going to help them in the job market are happening outside of the classroom. And then finally, it's this idea of networked learning. You know, we don't learn in isolation anymore. We learn from our peers, we learn from our mentors, and we have to be humble in that learning. When I talk to many students about where they got the best internships that they had or how they got their jobs, they all talked about the power of their network and the power of their mentors. And in many ways, I think it talks about the sustainability of residential learning, because residential learning is largely about the network. It's about the people you meet. It's why people want to go to elite colleges, because they think the network's going to be better for them in the end. But where do you find this network? To me, the network's not only going to be found in this box that we today call a bachelor's degree, right, this 4-year experience, but it's going to largely be found throughout your life and the networks that are supporting learning throughout your life. You know, I mentioned earlier this new paradigm around learning, where it's not over when you leave college. It's also going to be lifelong, and largely that's now being delivered by people outside of traditional higher education, whether it's the lynda.coms of the world or the large MOOCs, Coursera and edX and General Assembly. These are largely the entities that Stanford design wants to better compete against, because they're, places like Stanford and others finding that they have a lot to offer their alumni after they graduate at the age of 22, to help them guide them into a pathway, into a career, and into an occupation. And again, I think that colleges have to rethink the fact that for the most part they say goodbye to their students on graduation day, and then largely they pass them off to this lifelong learning mechanism that is largely being provided by other folks. And I think that, again, we need to kind of rethink the bachelor's degree to become something of a degree that is much more focused on lifelong learning. So I appreciate your time today. I'm joined by Liz Dietz, who's been sitting with me, listening to me talk about what I've learned over the last couple of years researching this book. And she has done a lot of work both in her career and especially over the last couple of years in trying to figure out how colleges can better manage the student pathways from education to the workforce. And largely she has found in our conversation how technology can support this. So Liz, can you talk a little bit about how you see the world of technology supporting this important transition, which many students are failing at, from education to occupation?
Thanks, Jeff. I'd love to talk about it because myself and all of us at Workday see a lot of opportunity here. As I listened to your presentation, and this is the second time I've heard it, and it just resonates even more how much we can support a lot of the things that you spoke about. So specifically, what we're focusing on is we've designed Workday Student to support this transition in 3 specific ways with 3 specific sets of functionality. First of all, allowing the institution to define and manage competencies. Most student systems today aren't able to do that. And that was job number 1 for us, making sure that we could fully support competencies. Secondly, providing an extended student record or transcript, a new kind of transcript that details those competencies on the transcript. And thirdly, and I think most importantly, with the electronic student portfolio that really showcases everything the students have learned and those soft skills that you talked about them gathering outside of the classroom. So in the first case, we've given the institution a flexible framework to manage and define the learning outcomes and the competencies within the curriculum management product. In the second case, we've given them an extended transcript that can really support the competencies that the student has gained, and most importantly, the electronic portfolio, which tracks not only the academics, including the competencies, but the activities and the artifacts as well. So a student portfolio would consist of these 3 dimensions. The student would be able to curate, tag, and share this information with potential employers or even a graduate program. I like to think of it as a Pinterest that supports the student's transition from education to occupation.
So I love this idea of the extended transcript. I was reminded of this recently because my family and I just recently moved, and so we had to pack up all of our artifacts. And in unpacking, my wife and I found our transcripts along with our diplomas. And I realized they've been packed away since we graduated from college, right? Nobody's ever asked us for our transcript because when I looked at it, when I opened it up, I realized it's just a bunch of numbers that don't make any sense and a bunch of grades. It really doesn't tell us anything. So how do you see the transcript evolving? What can you imagine if I'm moving in 20 years and I've graduated from college? What can you imagine? How do you see the transcript as we know it today evolving?
Thanks for asking that. I spent some time recently with Tom Black, the registrar at Stanford University, the university registrar, and he's very involved in some of these standards groups, specifically leading the charge with a PESC-ACRO work group focusing on a redesign of the transcript. And he asserts that the transcript that you unearthed, that artifact that we all have, which doesn't really say much for us, was created for the faculty, for them to quickly assess whether a student should be allowed to enter a specific academic program, and they could quickly get a feeling for their academic preparedness. But many of us use a transcript now, like we use a resume, to tell us something about the student. I know when I hire students, that's not enough for me.
Right.
So the extended transcript is, it's very exciting because there's a lot of organizations that are now talking about it and coming together to look at how it can better support the student's transition. So this extended transcript that all the standards bodies are focusing on, IMS Global, PESC, ACRO, we're looking at the design, how to make it more 3-dimensional. And what would the electronic standards associated with a 3-dimensional transcript look like? For me, I see it evolving into the dimensions that I talked about with the portfolio, where you would be able to see not only the classes and the grades that you received and the degrees that you may have received or certifications, whatever your achievement was, but also the ability to drill down into the course and see what are the competencies and the learning outcomes that the student has achieved as a result of that course. And whether it's a single course or a cluster of courses, that you could even stack some of these competencies. One of the things that the folks at ACRO and Tom Black mentioned to me is, how they see a student wanting to be able to bundle and unbundle, and the administration bundle and unbundle some of these competencies and courses to be able to get new, more meaningful certifications. So I see a huge future in what we're doing, and we will continue to be involved in these standards groups. We were involved in a pilot project last summer with the IMS Global Group where we proved, as a proof point in this pilot project, that with our software, Workday Student, we could define the competencies, register students in the courses with those competencies for a grade, and still back into the competency and produce the outcomes and the competencies along with the grade and the traditional transcript on this extended transcript record.
So what is the endpoint of the right? So if we have these extended transcripts and they include, the competencies and the soft skills and, the internships and have a lot more assets to them, they have a lot more pieces of information that could be useful to employers. Do you think that this can help colleges answer this kind of ROI question that they're increasingly being asked, right? As the price of college goes up, most parents and students want to know, what am I paying for? What's going to be the outcome of this?
Right.
Most important outcome to a lot of students and parents is, am I going to get a job, right? So in your mind, will these change the situation that I had talked about earlier, where some students are really having a hard time making that transition from college to the workforce because they don't have the experiences that they need to, or most important, they can't prove the competencies that they have.
Right. Well, you bring up a problem that's getting a lot of attention, and we talk a lot about it with all of our customers at Workday and with folks in the industry, and we're approaching the problem in a couple of ways. First, as I said, being able to actually define the competencies for the courses. This is a lot of work for institutions, and some of them are doing it already, and others are just trying to figure out what does it mean for us to move our curriculum to being able to maybe not be competency-based, but to articulate the competencies. A lot of thinking has to go into that. So, we provide them the framework, but at the end of the day, the institutions really do have to do the hard work there. And some of them are doing it already, and others are still trying to figure out how to move to associating competencies with a liberal arts course, for example. Others, like the natural sciences and technology, they really lend themselves well to defining competencies. It's pretty clear if you're in a computer science major, the kinds of programming languages and operating systems and things that you're going to be competent in. Secondly, the transcript can only go so far. It's still, even as it evolves into this three-dimensional electronic transcript, it's still, I think for the most part, or at least what I'm seeing today, is going to be focused on the courses you took, the achievements or the grades or the certifications, the degrees you've achieved, and also the competencies that came out of those. But we really see the notion of the electronic portfolio being much more powerful. In the electronic portfolio that we've spent a lot of time and energy with customers and talking to employers, designing, is made up of the three areas that I mentioned: the academics, the activities, and the artifacts. And this is where the student could showcase everything they've achieved, everything they've learned, and they can actually provide evidence of that. So with the activities, with the academics, for example, including the courses, the grades, the degrees, honors that we talked about. But the activities start to display some of those soft skills: study abroad, athletics, clubs, teams they've participated in, volunteer activities, summer jobs they had, internships. That's where you start to see, they really can work with teams. They really are problem solvers. They can multitask and balance a lot of things. And then the artifacts is where you can really see the evidence, which could be rich media. It might be a computer program that they wrote. It might be a dance performance, a music performance. It may be them speaking at the science fair, showing the robot that they built. But it's whatever it is that illustrates and provides the evidence of the work that the student has done, and then they can curate that and tag it and share it as they feel appropriate. So it's those three dimensions of the activities, the academics, and the artifacts that tell the three-dimensional story. But one other thing where we're sort of, at Workday, we're trying to put our money where our mouth is, and we really believe in internships, and we've started a program called Workday at College. And this was sort of a brainstorm or a special project that our founder and chairman of the board, Dave Duffield, came up with. And he personally backed this program, and it creates competitive internship opportunities for students that lead to what he calls great jobs. And we provide these students training on Workday technology. We place them with our customers or our services partners in internship positions, and they ultimately do lead to real jobs. So last summer we had our first inaugural class of Workday at College, and we had students from Barry University, Broward College, and Stevens Institute of Technology, and they participated in a program and were placed in real jobs with Sierra Cedar, Deloitte Consulting, and some of them got jobs at Broward College. So this next year, we're rapidly expanding the program, taking more interns from more universities like Nevada State System of Higher Education, where they're implementing a huge Workday implementation project across all the institutions in that system. And we'll be training students across the country and getting them jobs with these Workday skills.
Right. So one final question, and if the audience has questions, please be asking them in the Q&A portion of your screen. One final question for you before I turn it back to Peggy. Higher education is known to operate in silos a lot, right? So, there's been a wave of a focus on access to college years ago. Then there was a focus on, we were getting good access, but we weren't getting great graduation rates. So then there was a focus on kind of retention and graduation. Now there is this focus on student success. Student success meaning a lot of things. How do you see this, the ideas that you were just talking about, this idea of engaging students around their competencies and around internships and around extracurricular and co-curricular activities? How do you see that helping in institutions student retention and the ultimate success of those students?
Yeah, we really see the connection between student success. And, we don't look at student success and engagement as just something you do once they're in college, although we do look at it there. But we look at it from the very first interaction that the institution has with the students. And today, as you mentioned, we've released our campus engagement, recruiting products, and admissions products, and they're live being used by Barry University, Broward College, Tallahassee Community College, and Indian River State College. So they're using those now. So from the feedback we're getting from them and the other design partners, the institutions we're working with, we're getting a lot of good feedback on how to evolve this notion of engagement. So with the advice from these customers and the engagement product that we've built, from the very first interaction, the student will receive targeted communications, targeted activities at the right time with the right information that sort of guides them through this process. We hear a lot of talk about these guided pathways, and that's what we're looking for, this engagement to provide for these guys. It guides them to do the right things at the right time that support their success. Things like completing the admissions application and financial aid application and all the myriad of requirements on time and fulfilling them, connecting them with advisors when they need an advisor, mentors when the time is right for a mentor, connect them to events and services that might support their success, connecting them with success circles, or study groups at the right time. We also see it steering them to some explicit pathways to success. Students want to hear that. And so we're very excited about how our current products and future products will be able to support this, all on the right device.
Well, thanks a lot, Liz. I know we're going to be having some questions come in, but first I want to turn it back to Peggy.
So I think we have, Peggy, I think we have Shane Topping here. from our product marketing team at Workday. And I was hoping we could take the time to give the audience a peek at the products that we've just talked about, our student recruiting, engagement, and admissions, which are being used by our customers today. Shane, in introducing Shane, by way of introducing him, I'd like to let everyone know Shane is a former director of admissions at a highly selective private institution, and he can share with all of you on the phone today how our customers are using these products to improve institutional and student success.
Thank you, Liz. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to hop right into the student demonstration for the sake of timing so we get move through it. And just to set the table here I'll be walking through some slides, and as you can see, the first slide shows mobile ability through the Workday student application. And when Workday was founded, over 10 years ago now, not only was it true cloud, but it was one of the other directives was mobile first. And with the shifting demographics of the workforce and student populations, as Jeff mentioned earlier, heavy emphasis on digital natives and just how they interact with their expectations of technology, say on a campus in their daily lives, Workday student is no different. So there's a couple personas I'll be walking through today and introducing. The first one is Karen Bateman. As you can see here, this is her home page within her Workday mobile application. And Karen's the director of admissions at AMU, so Alma Mater University. That's the university that we're building out here in Workday Student. And as you can see from her home page, it's actually a collection of different transactions that she could be using as a worker, as an employee at AMU, as a manager at AMU, and then as a practitioner. Obviously, as a director of admissions, she's a heavy decision maker in the admissions funnel. So you can see things like, time off and expenses. This shows the power for the universities that are considering a full platform of, say, HCM, payroll, finance, and now student. This really shows that power of one, where everything's in a single instance and a single unified sort of look and feel. So we'll jump right into it. One of Karen's routines each morning is to, as she is drinking her coffee on her way into her commute, she gets her iPad out, and she's going to go into her dashboards that are customized for her. And AMU actually has some recruitment goals, and one of them has to do with out-of-state recruitment. With the recent shift in demographics across the U.S., AMU really needs to focus on their out-of-state recruitment because actually they're showing a declining population in their regional markets. So the student prospect by geography is one thing we'll look into, and you could drill into any one of these dashboards. The previous slide, you can have several different worklets showing all different types of variations, and actually that dashboard can evolve through the recruitment cycle. Right now, AMU is in the middle of their fall recruitment, so it's a heavy, fall travel, high school visits, college fairs, and she wants to get a pulse on how their out-of-state recruitment efforts are going. So as you can see, we have in-state, out-of-state, international populations, and down on the left there, actually you could drill in even deeper. So now, since not even you could do filter down if you look at the view by, she's really interested, all right, well, how is our out-of-state recruitment going, as well as our female population, because they have currently an imbalance of their mix of males to females. So she's really interested in their female populations at AMU within the recruitment funnel. And she could do that by drilling down into the data. Now here's the list of her female out-of-state prospects currently at AMU. The beauty of the embedded analytics throughout the entire Workday student application is that they're actionable analytics. One of the challenges I had in my previous life was that a lot of the reporting that I looked at was just static information. It was either an Excel sheet or some pretty PDF or a document, and I couldn't really get to the person level and take action. It was really just static numbers and graphs. So Workday Student takes that to another level. I see that as a differentiating factor with what we're building out here. So next, as a transition, Karen has arrived on campus at AMU. She's at her desktop view now, so we just transitioned out of mobile, and we're going into the desktop view, and she has arrived at her office. And again, it's the same look and feel. You can see the different work lists that are associated to Karen, the Director of Admissions. Based on her security and role, she could take certain actions within this. Maybe it's approving expenses, requesting or approving time off, and then as you can see, recruiting and admissions are two GA available products currently out in the market, are right there front and center as well. Through the past 2 years, our close, intimate work with our 9 design partners and some of our strategic influencers, through our recruiting and admissions conversations with those teams at the various schools, one of the common sort of rituals each year is goal setting. This is one of Karen's dashboards that actually highlights goal setting. Again, one of my challenges in my previous life was that typically the goals did come from the top, so from the president on down to the cabinet level, to the VP level, and they would cascade down. Actually, in student, we're able to reuse a lot of the work that was done in our HCM and talent performance areas, actually in goal setting for institutions. So I had a static Word doc that I would pin up on my corkboard, and then I would transcribe down to a whiteboard throughout the year. And it really lived outside the systems I was interacting with on a daily basis, whether that was the CRM I was doing my recruiting or the student system where legacy data lived. So here we introduced goal setting, and as you see at the top, some headlines here from Dr. John Metcalf. He's a provost at AMU, and he has some directives. In the middle of the screen, you'll see they want to grow their mathematics program as well as their female STEM. So now that, one of the things we talked about closely with the design partners is that step 1 was to plan your work, right? You have to plan your work, then work your plan. Planning is goal setting, setting targets. So that is clear here. Now the next step would be to define the tactics that will get you to the end line, to get you to those goals, right? So you have to define your work, the campaigns that you'll use throughout the recruitment cycle to get you to your female STEM goals, to your mathematics goals, et cetera, et cetera. So this dashboard actually, if you look at the reports and links in the upper right, actually you can take action right here from these dashboards as well. You could drill down just like the previous slides I showed in the mobile experience. Moving forward, the red box, that the ... in the Workday system allows a user to take a related action. And here actually one of the cool features is that Dr. John Metcalf actually embedded a video that will cascade down to the various departments, and he's wishing them good luck with the upcoming recruitment cycle, and he actually reiterates the goals in a quick video. So you could probably imagine how this can be reused throughout a student life cycle. Maybe it's a welcome greeting from the president or a dean of the school of a recently admitted student. Maybe it's instructions on how to fill out a FAFSA or a financial aid form, etc. So embedded video can be used right inside our system as well. Moving forward, another important and high priority report and dashboard of Karen Bateman, Director of Admissions, is her admissions funnel. So the traditional funnel, lead to inquiry conversions, that's very important, all the way through application. How are their conversions working? Application analysis by month. The one we're going to focus in on is something we spent a bit of time with the design partners developing, is something called effectiveness reporting. So one of the common questions I would ask myself each year in my previous life was, where are we getting the most bang for our buck? And what worked, what didn't? What are we going to reuse? What tactics are we going to reuse? What campaigns will we reuse? And what do we really need to cut loose? Because obviously I know everyone on the line, everyone's strapped with budgets, certainly state universities, more so than others probably. And you really want to figure out where you're getting the most bang for your buck. This one happens to do with recruiting campaigns effectiveness reporting. So if we take the traditional college fair, high school visit, and say open house model, which many universities would use across the country to recruit prospects and applicants, you can see here it's giving us that valuable data that I would ask myself all the time in my previous life is, all right, what is our most effective campaigns or events that we're running? And this simple one is we could see that AMU female STEM event at $15 per net new prospect. So how many new prospects were realized from the event and what did it cost? And the beauty is that if you do unify HCM finance, and then student, you could get down to that accounting level within a couple clicks. So, the budgeted costs versus the actual costs. And all the way down, if we went a couple levels deeper, down to the receipts that were tied to that exact event. So, how much do we spend on food for that event? How much was mileage, housing, meals, etc.? You could drill all the way down to that level and analyze that. So this just tells us that their on-campus events are the most successful and they're getting the most bang for their buck. So that was important for her to review this morning as well. Next, we transition. We know the admissions shop on most campuses run all different types of events. I mean, whether it's your campus tours, your information sessions, your high school visits off campus, your regional information sessions, interviews. We have event management built into the recruiting and admissions platforms here. And the one we'll focus in on is from a calendar view, which is highly efficient, whether you're a Karen Bateman or the other persona I will introduce is an admissions counselor at AMU called Nathan Sundberg. He's a super user of the calendar as well. Since he's sort of your road warrior type of student, a type of admissions counselor or recruiter, he'll heavily use the recruiting calendar to manage his weeks of recruitment throughout the fall. So from a click, we could go into the event details. And in the event details, there's a lot of that rich information you need. It's either a manager of the event or someone that will be attending the event as a staff member. You can see how many invited, and again, the red box will signify. I could drill into this, and we'll see some details in just a second. But if I were to scroll down below the location and contact, actually right below that would show all the communications that are wrapped around this event. So as Liz mentioned earlier, core to the student system is engagement. So some might think of it as the CRM of the system. This, student is going to be much bigger than a CRM, but engagement is embedded throughout the system, which is huge when we talk about student success and things like that down the line. But here you would see, student, you can see the recipient filter. So who was invited to this event? How many prospects were actually in that invite? You can also see once the student registered, you could send them a confirmation dynamically. Student registers, he gets an automatic email saying, thank you for registering for the Girls Who Code event. Here are directions to our campus and all the event details. You can also have a follow-up. So for those that attended the event, you can have, once they're marked as attended, you can have the automatic reply saying, thank you for coming, we hope to see you soon, and have a follow-up email as well. So a lot of dynamic communication built in. But again, the ability to drill down is great. Maybe Karen knows Allison Fleury, it's a family friend, and she knows that we could see that she was invited, she registered, and she actually attended the event, and maybe she wants to send her a quick follow-up ad hoc email to the event. So certainly that's very powerful. To take action within the entire view of this system is very powerful. Next now, we're going to transition to my next persona, who is Nathan Sundberg. He's an admissions counselor at AMU, and he's the road warrior. He spends a lot of time in the fall. Currently, it's right in the thick of fall recruitment at AMU, and now he's on his mobile phone. Again, same look and feel. Since he's an admissions counselor and not necessarily a manager, his security and roles within his mobile application would certainly be different than Karen Bateman, but the same look and feel. He's going to tap into his student tile here, and he's interested in checking out an event that's actually happening on campus. And it goes back to our AMU Girls Who Code event, which is hosted by Society of Women in Engineering. You can see event details. One of the challenges Nathan had prior to adopting Workday was that he used to bring a lot of paper on the road. He used to print out his Google Map directions to, his 15 high school visits in 4 days. He used to print out his list of prospects from all the different schools. So the mobile recruiter on the go within Workday recruiting eliminates all that extra work. I remember actually I spent 13 years in higher ed, and I actually started at the admissions counselor level, and I remember bringing a lot of paper on the road, and it was a lot of time I had to dedicate to organize all that paper to make sure I got to the right place at the right time. But through our events management on mobile, you can see actually Nathan Sundberg could check attendees in on his mobile phone. A great example of this, one of our design partners, Liz mentioned, is Broward College down in southern Florida, one of the biggest community colleges down in southern Florida. And their President Armstrong, actually, once they adopted and went live with recruiting last fall, the president actually was so excited about the Workday application. He was there live checking in students at the event, which is great. And to take it one step further, you could get down to, again, the student view. So Allison checked into the event. Nathan checked her in. We could see some basic details. She has a fine ACT score. We could see what institution she's part of. And if you scroll down, there's extra information as well. If we tap into the recruitment part of her profile, again, that ... allows us to take a related action, offer her recruitment tile. And actually, Nathan had an excellent conversation with Allison, and he's going to denote an engagement conversation. Now, the engagement conversation that Nathan just denoted in his mobile app, when he gets back on campus or back to his desktop, that seamlessly integrates into Allison's interaction history on the desktop view. So now this is logged as an engagement within her history, which is just fantastic. It gives you that much more context. When you're trying to gauge and score engagement, how involved this student was throughout the recruitment cycle, tagging conversations to this specific event will be very powerful down the line. Nathan can also look at, since he's, again, visiting lots of different schools throughout the cycle, he can look at institutions. Institutional data. So he's in the Northeast traveling, he's visiting Cushing Academy, and he can get down and see how many prospects are currently in the Workday system tied to this institution. Again, he's just going to be better armed heading into that high school visit or college fair of what type of prospects are currently interacting from that specific institution. All from a mobile device. Now we're transitioning back to desktop. Since admissions just went GA this past fall, fall of 2015, what we have quickly here is the application pool work area. So going back to goal setting and some of the strategies to sort of land where Karen and the VP Enrollment want to land is the value of the application work area is that you could segment your application pool accordingly to whatever your methodology you want to your local institution. So whether you do your file reading by alpha, by school, by program of study, this allows for extreme flexibility in creating different types of app pools. Again, and which should probably mirror your strategic objectives. So maybe you have a new program coming out, or you just want to read by a school or major, totally available within the applicant pool work area. Next is one of our applicants, Allison, decided to apply to AMU. This is, as you can see, the student profile view within Workday Student. You can see the first tab there is recruitment. Second is application. And down on the line, you can even see financial aid, because for the sake of this demonstration, Allison was actually eventually admitted to AMU. So congratulations, Allison. And she'll eventually need financial aid. But to highlight a couple of the other things here, student tags is worth noting. Another way to better segment your applicant pool or different cohorts within your applicant pool. So maybe these are your varsity athletes, your STEM prospects, your top prospects, however the admissions and recruiting shop wants to best segment their applicant pools, you could use student tags. Well, certainly after Allison applied, she needed to be assigned application requirements, right? And this could be done at the program of study level, which is tied to the academic hierarchy that program of study lives in. So, for example, if Allison was a business major, she could see one set of requirements. And if another applicant was a music major with a lot of performing arts and extra requirements, that could be a totally different set. So maybe a portfolio would be added to a music and arts major where it's not there. So that could be dynamically tied to the program of study that they apply to. We could see also that they're able to waive and waive requirements and add notes, which is very useful to map back strategic objectives that may be. So since they have a female STEM objective, they waived their application fee. But since Allison was complete and ready for review, it's now time to assess her application. And here we use something called questionnaires. A questionnaire would feed into an assessment form. And this shows the power of now we're able to bring in quantitative metrics into the file reading process. One thing I did use at my previous institution is an academic index score. So to keep file reading standardized and to make sure my counselors were following the same methodology, say you have a 100-point academic score. And now you could tie in the assessments into that 100-point academic score, which is very valuable actually down the road. When we start thinking about academic advising and retention task force and initiatives, that academic score and some of the assessment that you're quantifying can be passed down to various different departments. So this questionnaire will tie into an assessment form that may just link into maybe a very easy-to-use 1.5 scale. Maybe you're evaluating the transcript, how rigorous it was, their essay, and their extracurricular activities here at AMU. And then once all is said and done and evaluation is complete, and Allison has been formally admitted to university, Karen has done that for several thousand applicants. At the end of the day, one thing that Karen needs to do on a daily basis is keep a pulse through her scorecards, which is, again, could be part of her dashboard. Scorecarding is something we came up with where this will allow Karen to focus her time, energy, and resources on her pain points. And it's that red light analogy, green, yellow, and red. The red is where she really needs to focus her time. To add more context, say this is April 1, we have 4 more weeks to May 1, and she really needs to focus on yield initiatives, because right now her freshman deposit headcount at 723 is not meeting the target at 850, so they still have 127 deposits to go in 4 weeks. Maybe the silver lining is they didn't spend as much in this class, so now you're seeing the blending of data, financial aid data, into her dashboard. Their discount rate is good, but their head count is still a little short. So now she knows she needs to maybe create an additional a campaign for yield initiatives, and she really needs to mobilize her staff on maybe a phone call campaign or extra event or extra engagement. So this allows her to analyze on a daily basis where she needs to focus her efforts. So with that, we have 1 quick minute. I'll hand it back over to Peggy for any, I don't know if we have a quick Q&A available.
Thanks, Shane, so much. And yeah, we want to be cognizant of everyone's time, but we do have one question. We have a few questions. Again, if we don't get to your question, we will get a reply to you as soon as possible. But this question is for Liz, and the question is, where is Workday with the development of its student system, and what is the timeline for release?
Oh, thanks, Peggy. Well, we're moving along really quickly with the development of our student system. As I mentioned earlier, we have campus engagement, academic foundation, recruiting and admissions are generally available and live with customers. We're bringing out our academic advising, student records, curriculum management, financial aid, student financials products into what we call a preview mode this March for our design partner customers, our early adopters. We'll be gathering their feedback on that product very quickly and because in our agile sort of iterative development cycle, taking those suggestions quickly, incorporating them in, and all of those products will be generally available on the market for our first customers next fall.
Thank you, Liz. And we're at 1 minute after the hour. So again, I want to thank everyone for attending. To those people whose questions we didn't get answered, we will get those answers out to you. Thank you, Jeff Selingo. Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Shane Topping. And thank you all for listening in. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Joining me today is Jeff Selingo and Liz Dietz. Jeff is a best-selling author and award-winning columnist who helps parents and higher education leaders imagine the college and university of the future and how to succeed in a fast-changing economy. He is the author of College Unbound, The Future of Higher Education and What It Means